So I recently watched Garfield and Kung Fu Panda 4, and it made me think, are animated films becoming lazy? And I mean that in every sense of the word, from the production, the marketing to the final product. Animated movies weren't always like this. It seems like most mainstream animated films have ended up cutting their budgets. Take Kung Fu Panda 4 for example. This had a budget of $85 million. That's not much at all for an animated film released this year. And comparing it to the original, it's kind of embarrassing. The movie had a budget of $130 million all the way back in 2008. And if you adjust for inflation, that movie would have costed $189 million today. Wow. So you can see why this may cause issues. The first Kung Fu Panda movie still holds up in pretty much every area. It has a deep, mature story and animation that holds up surprisingly well today. The film uses conventional animated tropes to its advantage, and it tells its story in a surprisingly refreshing way. Po could have easily just been a Shrek copy, but his character is different enough to stand out on his own. I'm going to show you guys 3 key scenes in the original Kung Fu Panda movie, and this will show you why this movie works so well. Kung Fu Panda also utilises annoying cliches to his advantage. The best scene in the movie is when Po finds out that he's supposed to defeat Tai Lung, and then he tries to run away because of it. This is the movie's second act low point. Instead of showing out a drawn out lie or reveal or misunderstanding, we have a scene where Po explains his feelings to Master Shifu, and this is someone who has been trying to get rid of him the whole time. The drama is actually warranted because of 2 reasons: Po being actually bad at Kung Fu, and Master Shifu being forced to follow Oogway's plans of Po becoming the Dragon Warrior. This makes the blow up scene actually feel earned and not forced in the slightest, and this is because we can actually understand both of the characters' issues with each other. And the conflict is not completely resolved in the scene, but at least Po doesn't actually quit like he was intending to. After this we have a short scene with the Furious 5. After they watch the argument from a distance, they decide to put matters into their own hands to defeat Tai Lung. It's a much more light-hearted scene, and it's a needed moment to break up the tension from before. And it's not just a random comic relief scene, it's also there to actually advance the plot. This just reinforces the fact of how vital the Furious 5 are. Yeah, you can see where I'm getting at here. These characters played that much of a role in Kung Fu Panda, that not including them is just as asinine as not including the title character himself. And after a very short scene with the Furious 5, we are focused straight back onto Po and Shifu. There's no moping and doping. There's no wasted time in this film. Every scene has a reason to exist, and this just shows how good the storytelling is in this movie. Now this brings us to Kung Fu Panda 4. It's no surprise that this movie has not got a lot of fans to say the least. In fact, it's pretty much universally regarded as the worst movie in the franchise, and you couldn't say that for the films before this. Sure, the third movie is generally regarded as the weakest one, but it's still a fine movie and it still has its fans. I mean, just look at the first shot from the third movie. It's so well done and it looks absolutely beautiful. Its heart was still in the right place at least. The Kung Fu Panda 4 co-director Stephanie Stein recently addressed all the criticisms people had on the film. Basically, the production was an entire mess the whole time. The director Mike Mitchell just didn't listen to pretty much anyone during production. And this includes Stephanie Stein, who's the co-director of the whole film. And Mike Mitchell directed Alvin and the Chipmunks 3 and Trolls. Like, what the hell did they expect with this movie? And it's funny that Joel Crawford, the guy who directed Puss in Boots 2, saw his co-director as an equal. He listened to other people's opinions on the movie. And surprise surprise, look how good that movie turned out. Kung Fu Panda 4 was also written during a writer's strike, and writers were actually joining midway through production. Jesus Christ, it's a miracle that this movie exists in the first place. They even had ideas such as bringing humans into the story. Yes, you heard that correctly. They really thought that bringing actual humans into this strictly animal universe would be a good idea. They were even considering making the humans live action. What on earth would that achieve? It would just be awful. It actually does make sense when you realise Mike Mitchell directed Shipwrecked, and it turns out that it was a last minute decision to bring back the previous villains, so that's why it feels like they shouldn't be in the movie. Literally nothing was thought out well in this film. Nothing. They were throwing random ideas out to each other all the time, and this is why the movie feels so all over the place. Knowing this makes the marketing of this movie feel way more evil now. They knew the characters were a last minute addition, yet they advertised Tai Lung as an integral part to the story. He's in the movie for like 10 minutes. And bringing the villains back and eventually respecting Po is such a slap in the face for the Kung Fu Panda fans. And it actually cheapens the other movies. That's why I just pretend that this movie doesn't exist sometimes. It's kind of the same thing as the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Why on earth would Tai Lung, Kai, and especially Shen respect Po at the end of the movie? They hate his guts, and he's the reason why they are defeated in the previous films. Lord Shen literally committed a mass genocide on all the pandas because of a stupid prophecy. But no, it's fine because Po defeated the chameleon, who literally had nothing to do with them beforehand. And apart from Tai Lung himself, these characters who are so beloved in their respected movies don't even get a speaking role. And this is probably because of budget cuts. Yay. Gary Oldman and J.K. Simmons were probably way too expensive to get now with their tiny budgets, so thank God that Ian McShane was a lesser known celebrity. And this brings us to the Furious 5. To get Angelina Jolie back alone would have costed them a fortune, and of course because of cost cutting they weren't going to do that. So the conflict in this movie doesn't have space to breathe like in the first film, and that's because they're not in the movie at all. And the conflict itself is just so awful in this film. Any merit that you can give to the original Kung Fu Panda is absolutely stripped away here. First of all, they replaced the Furious 5 with Awkwafina. That could genuinely be the biggest downgrade of all time. So, the Awkwafina character is a known thief the entire movie. You already know that something is not right with her. She is clearly not someone Po should trust in the slightest. And because of this, by the first bloody frame of seeing her, you can already predict the entire movie. And let me tell you, that is not a good sign of good storytelling. The whole movie you're just anticipating a lie reveal, which is kind of like Chicken Run in a way. And these movies are some of the worst examples of this cliche. When it's set up to the viewer at the very start of the movie, the rest of the film suffers because you are just waiting for that moment to happen. And when it does indeed happen, it's just the most predictable crap in the world. So Awkwafina does turn out to be the twist villain. And we have this obligatory scene where Po finds out that she lied. And then get this conflict isn't resolved in the movie for 14 minutes of the runtime. Oh my god, that is shocking. This movie is very short anyway, being an hour and a half. So to spend that much time on this crap is just awful. The cherry on top in my opinion is the lazy animation. The film looks good, but I'd argue the third movie looks better than this. Again, look at these visuals. They're insane. And on an animation front, this movie doesn't have any of the creativity the other ones do. And this just makes me scared for the animation industry, to be honest. We have Illumination to blame for this. They prove that you can make animation look good on a budget, and now almost every other company has been trying to copy that since. It doesn't help that Universal, the parent company to Illumination, also now owns DreamWorks. It's just a very slippery slope. Pixar still luckily have the higher budgets, but honestly they lost their charm years ago. Their films not only were incredibly mature, but they also appealed to kids and adults alike. They had complex messages and real life themes that actually said something. Even a film like Cars had something to say about the rural towns in America being forgotten about. I don't really like the movie, but I sure respect it more than the newer ones. YouTuber Emplemon made a good point that their films were ruined when Disney bought Pixar. They realised that Up's first 10 minutes could manipulate the viewer into feeling sadness. And that's what they've been doing ever since. The movies only appeal to the mums taking their little babies to the cinema. A good children's story also appeals to adults. Pixar truly lost their edge. Inside Out didn't appeal to everyone. Well, at least it didn't appeal to me and many others. And this sequel just seems ever so more egregious. Why include more emotions? You don't need any more than the original ones. Oh yeah, it was probably because they knew that this sequel is a safe bet for them making money. The only hope I really have now in mainstream animation is Joel Crawford. He made 2 great sequels to mediocre movies, and I genuinely believe that he can make Shrek 5 good. Just please, for the love of God, don't hire Mike Mitchell instead. Thanks for watching.
It's junk. First class junk.